you talk, Jasper, about this idea of law then, and I'd be interested to hear what the Romani traditions, so by law I mean the kind of instructions within nature, which you've touched on a bit there with the tree. If you can give us, I know that you have a particular spirit. In fact, it seems to me that you have a spirit for almost everything in the world, you know, which is what we mean by an animate world. So could you talk a little bit more about the spirit of the law and the instructions that we find within the natural world that we really struggle to read, most of us today?
I think that's a very sort of interesting question, but it's also something that's, the answer is very detailed, because when you're talking about something called Morcheriben, which is a code of law, you're talking about something that's sort of inbuilt, if you like. It's built inside us. And if we're talking about instructions, then well, let's sort of take it back to the really ancient people. If you go back to the really ancient people, then they would have known that automatically. They wouldn't have to learn it. Unfortunately, we have to relearn. And to relearn, we have to unlearn. That sounds a bit odd, but there are ways we can do this. It takes a while to unlearn, but we've got to sort of, I suppose, unravel all the stuff that we've learned about what we think life is about. And I found that most of the time, this isn't actually quite accurate, because most of what we learn is gleaned from New Age spiritual teachers, from certain books, from this, from that. And we have such a lot of information. It's not even knowledge sometimes, it's more information, because we live in a world of information with technology the way we have it. It's all about information. So if we're talking about those, values again, I suppose if we're talking about the values, then we have to work out how we can work back to what I call primary organic thinking. We have to work back to something that is organic within us. I often say we're always eating organic food, we have organic clothes, we have eco this and that, and we're not organic. I mean, it sounds weird to say that, but we're not. We don't know how to practice organic thinking, if you like. So it is very detailed. And this law of Morcheriben, it's something that the birds practice, it's something that all the wild animals practice, it's something that is practiced in the wild all the time. And when we were wild, way back thousands and thousands of years ago, I'm not talking about just a few hundred years ago, I'm talking about thousands of years ago, it was automatic in us. Now, somehow, slowly, very slowly, that changed. As time went on, those, as you say, instructions got mixed up with instructions according to civilized living, according to the way we have been colonized all over the world, according to all sorts of things that are absolutely nothing to do with primary organic thinking or to do with the way we used to be. So it's a very, very, I suppose it seems like a complex thing to think about, but it's not complex, because most of what we need is just to be simple. Most of what we need is just to think as we are, who we are, what we are, and just think that I want to know how I can tap into these instructions, this law of Morcheriben, this code of law, and I want to know how I can do that. One of the best ways is to listen to the birds singing, is to take a walk in a wood and just think simply. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, the spirit of destiny will pop into your mind and will probably give you some sort of path that you can tread that's going to lead you back to these instructions. So tapping into the values is vital. If you tap into the values of what you find within nature, let's say briefly, let's say courage, it takes courage for a leaf to fall. It takes strength for a tree to stand his or her ground. It takes humility for a wood to flourish. It takes humility for us as well to relate to that wood that's flourishing. There are all kinds of values that I can't go into them all at the moment because it takes a long time. But if you think of the values that are there within the natural world, then you will tap into what the law of Morcheriben is trying to teach us. The law of Morcheriben goes across all the animals and birds and humans, or it used to be with humans. And we can then learn to speak that wonderful language of the values that exist in the natural world.